everybody, and welcome along to the Premier League show. Before I begin, make sure that like buttons are being pressed. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when videos are coming on or when we're going live, because we will be going live in the future when there's more of a following. Just make sure you just follow the channel. Please, if you could share with your friends as well if you like the content. I'm just trying to build this channel, and I want to make it very clear to everybody here that I can't continue to create the content if there's nobody to watch the content. So please, can you just subscribe if you're out there, if you're watching, hit the like button, because it does me a lot better. As although views do well for me in the YouTube algorithm, likes and subscriptions take me even further up the charts. So we're just starting out here, and as much as support I can get at the moment is much appreciated. In the meantime, today on this episode, we'll be recapping the weekend action in the Premier League, as well as previewing the upcoming fixtures in the Champions League in the middle of the week for the Premier League clubs. So Arsenal and Manchester City's Champions League games. We will not have any specific Champions League shows, unfortunately, just because I don't really have that much expertise in regards to Bayern and Real Madrid. I'm just going to be real with you. I don't watch the Liga and Bundesliga every week. I don't have time for it. You'll see throughout this channel, I follow so many sports that having to watch other leagues in professional football, and that's is hard. I do watch these clubs when they play in the Champions League, but when they play in their domestic leagues, I don't really know as much. So we're just going to follow the two matches, which involve Arsenal and Manchester City. So yeah, there was another great weekend of football. And obviously, if you saw my previous video, you would have seen my previews, which did not include specific results in there. It was more. It more included just kind of general feelings, and are these games where Arsenal, Liverpool, or Manchester City could drop points? And I did flag all of them, and so we're going to get into it. This was a big weekend. All three teams were playing away from home against opposition that, like, I'll give you an example. Like Liverpool was playing Sheffield United. You didn't really go into that game really thinking Sheffield had a chance. They played opposition here that can really give you a go, regardless of their positions in the league. They're traditionally tough places to go and win for anybody. So it was going to be an interesting one. And I had a feeling that one of those would produce our first twist in the Champions League, and that is exactly what happened. So let's begin and let's run through the tale of the weekend, and then after that, I'll just quickly wrap up where this leaves us in the race, and then we'll discuss the Champions League. In our next episode of the Premier League show we'll be previewing what happens in the Premier League. So it'll be a little bit more of an in-depth preview without having to do the review, so I'm not taking too much time up. So that will be happening on our next episode, probably over the weekend before the games kicked off. So without further ado, let's begin. So we began the weekend. Actually, it's funnily enough not long after I uploaded my last video. In fact, my last video was uploading onto YouTube as this game was going on. So I was kind of watching this one while my previous first ever Premier League show was being uploaded to YouTube. But I think a lot of the things that I was saying in my previous video about all three title challengers held true throughout this weekend. And Manchester City, not long after the kickoff, 3 minutes actually, where is it officially the fourth minute? I remember it's 3 minutes something. Fourth minute. Um, uh, Adam Wharton puts in a beautiful ball, and suddenly Mateta got goal side and smashes a ball that goes up again, hits the post and bounces in past Ortega, and he just and Crystal Palace take the lead very quickly early on. And look, like I did last time when we were talking about Aston Villa and we were talking about the Sheffield game for Liverpool, I like to pause this moment in time. I think this game follows a very similar pattern to the Aston Villa game. But this is what I'm talking about in terms of Manchester City. The slight details of what a Manchester City side looked like last year, the year before, and what they look like this year. And for a team that's supposed to be, according to everyone, just so the sure thing about not losing a game or not putting themselves into trouble, I think look, it could be true for the most part, just because they could win these games like with the scorelines they had today, or 4-1, 4-2, or 3-1. You know what I mean? Like they can originally, but sometimes when you put yourself in these positions, as you saw from Arsenal last year in the run-in, it does get more stressful, and you have to claw back deficits, and you means putting a lot of energy to get back into that. And sometimes you get frustrated, or you're not on the right. It's not a good day for you, and you can't hit the target, and you're not as clinical as you usually are. And those are the days that things like this can cost you. So that's what I meant by a lot of the things that I said held true. So yeah, moving on. It didn't last long, and about 9 minutes later, Kevin De Bruyne lashes in a wonder strike from the edge of the area, just inside the edge of the area. It was a tight angle, but he smashes it into the top corner, and Manchester City equalized level 1-1, and it goes into halftime, and that is the remaining result. And City make a change. They bring on Manuel Akanji at halftime for Josko Vardiol. Actually, speaking of Josko Vardiol, there was a penalty shout, and I should actually highlight this before we move on to the second half. There was a ball that went in towards Eze, and he got absolutely dragged down to the ground by Gvardiol. It was almost a full-on tackle that should have been given as a penalty. Honestly, I do think in this respect, Palace were robbed, and I think as well, given off the previous point that I made, had that penalty been given, Manchester City could have drawn this game maybe 2-2, because they're just taking a different pattern of play, and they would have to dig back to get into that second goal. I think a lot of the time momentum is very important in these games, and when you're able to, as I will tell you that they did, once you're able to break through and go and take the lead, you can hit a third and a fourth, and just carry that momentum through. If Crystal Palace in this circumstances were awarded a penalty, and they were able to convert that penalty to go up 2-1 right at the stroke of halftime, I think this is a different game. I think Pep's going to have to make a few changes. He's going to have to bring on Phil Foden, the man I was glossing over, and he actually didn't feature in this game, which is very impressive from a Manchester City point of view, that they're able to have a result like this with Phil Foden on the bench, not even featuring at all. Just a testament to the type of depth and the quality that Manchester City possess. But I do want to highlight that moment. I do believe that Crystal Palace were unfairly denied a penalty. And as I mentioned when we were discussing the Man United game last week, I did say that in general, when there are penalty shots, most 9 out of 10 times the VAR is just going to back the decision made by the referee, which I think is flawed, because VAR should be there to come up with the right decision. However, nowadays what VAR seems to be doing is just backing the decision of the referee, which it takes a lot. However, in this case, I don't know how they could see the ball come in and a player deny goal scoring opportunities by tackling a man with his arms down to the ground to deny him being able to get to the ball. Like that's a full on tackle. Like if that happens outside the penalty area, 100%, 10 out of 10 times, that's given as a foul. So that's why I think they massively. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about other penalty decisions that we'll get to later on in the weekend, but this one unfortunately is not highlighted enough. My friend, not my friend, but Terry from the Football Terrace, who I'm a massive fan on, big up to him, did in his post match synopsis of this game did point that out and made it very, very clear that Crystal Palace were robbed here of a potential penalty, and I think that cannot be forgotten in the overall picture of this game. But we will move on to how the second half went, and this is why I think that was a pivotal moment in this game, because not long after the second half kicks off, Rico Lewis gives Manchester City the lead. He was actually his second ever Premier League goal. Actually, coincidentally, his first ever Premier League goal was also against Crystal Palace. So yeah, he does have a good record here in his young career against the Eagles. And yet, about 20 minutes later, Manchester City sees absolute control of this game. Erling Haaland catches the pass from Kevin De Bruyne, taps it in. It's 3-1, and at that point, that is the 3 points in the bag for Manchester City. But then they do seem to be on a roll here where it looks like, oh man, they might catch back the goal difference a little bit when Kevin De Bruyne hits in another beautiful strike, also assisted by Rodri. So on both strikes, Rodri 2 assists here. He lashes in a goal, and it's 4-1 to Man City. But that is not the end of the tale, as Odsonne Edouard does flick home a ball from Jeffrey Schlupp. Good work by Schlupp out on the left wing there, and he does find Edouard, who flicks in for 4-2. And again, look, I'm going to be harsh here in this title race when it comes to goals conceded, even in victories, because I need to remain consistent. And again, for all those people who think that Manchester City are going to go on and it's going to be comfortable and they're going to be professional, you cannot ignore these details. I feel like, especially in the media, people look at history and legacy or whatever, or their own kind of scripts or their kind of definitions for what clubs do, or the reputations, and use that as the benchmark to kind of blind over what's actually happening in the actual game. And the fact here is that Manchester City have conceded twice away from home, and there was a penalty shout that should have been given for Crystal Palace. This could have been a completely different game. It could have been a 2-2 or a 3-3 in this game had the penalties been made. And Man City again showing a slight bit of weakness. Now, credit to them, they go ahead, they pick up the 3 points. At this time of in the sequence, it took them to the top of the league. They went ahead of Arsenal by 2 points and went ahead of Liverpool by 1 point. No, they went level with Liverpool, I believe. Yeah, they went level with Liverpool in the league, but with a higher goal difference. They took the lead. And look, it's a game away from home. Crystal Palace has been tough historically for them. It was a bit of a high scoreline, which is, I'm not saying that Man City aren't going to win the league, or I'm trying to create a narrative that they won't win the league. I'm just trying to be consistent with what I've seen and what I've said. These things, obviously, for a club like Man City, this isn't necessarily them, and Pep Guardiola is capable of kind of tightening things up at the back. I mean, you saw when they played Arsenal, they didn't concede any against their title rivals. So they are capable of doing it, but games like this, like these, like when a title race is so close, the little details are very important. If Man City were 3 or 4 or 5 points clear in the Premier League title race, I wouldn't be talking about this much, because there would be a little bit of wiggle room for the odd, slip ups or concessions of goals, and obviously they'd still score double the amount of goals that Crystal Palace did, but again, a 4-2 scoreline. It's a bit chaotic if I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Um, yeah, look, my channel is all about being brutally honest and telling you what I see versus using any narratives. I made that very clear in my first episode. I don't like to follow narratives. I like to fairly judge everybody equally. I don't speak out of two sides of my mouth. Um, and I'm very critical of even the smallest details. I never throw anything to side and be like, it doesn't matter. Like, you have to talk about the positives and negatives um, with everyone in every victory, because that's how you get better. If you ignore negative things, eventually those negative things do come back to bite you. It happens across all sports. And when you come about being talk about being the champion, and if that's your aspirations, with it are for sure for Manchester City, the treble winners, you're going to have to be nitpicky. And from talking about Man City, it's just being nitpicky. When we talk about other teams, things like this are problems to a whole other level. But in this case, it's just something to watch out for. Is that Man City ability to concede goals? But overall, the positives for them, it's another 3 points picked up in the title race, which is massive. You look at their fixtures and you say, look, I don't really know who they're gonna drop points to, but there could be games like this where necessarily do the things go their way or they do get frustrated. You never know. Like as I said before, the fixtures can't be looked at just on paper on who you're playing. It's all also about the mentality and how you cope with the pressure as things get further along, which Manchester City have historically been very good at. So I'm not going to say this is something that's going to keep them from winning the league, but what I'm saying is I'm just using it as an example of if they do fail to win the league, these are the sort of instances that you can look back on and kind of see that they kind of showed you glimpses of the reason why, little bits of vulnerability. If I were going to rank the three teams, as I said before, and I reckon I would have said this last week, Liverpool being the most vulnerable, Man City and this is based on current form, not history. We're talking about current form this season, right? Man City being the second most vulnerable, and Arsenal being the third most vulnerable. And I know people might go mad and go crazy and be like, "What are you talking about? Arsenal are bottlers." You have to stop talking about last season. I'm also going to preach that with every sport. Like I flip the script at the beginning of every year. You look at who's come in, the teams, who's left. You watch how they're playing on the field, and you have to adjust. You can't be sticking to one take and be stubborn to one take. You have to watch. You if you're going to want to be an analyst, you have to watch every single game and give teams credit when it's due when they change. You have to, because you're going to fall behind and you're going to look stupid. So Manchester City, that was 3 points. They took care of business. The next team to play up, it was Arsenal's turn, and they put their pressure on them to later go down to the Amex. Move on to talking about Arsenal. I do want to discuss Aston Villa's game against Brentford, because I do believe that Aston Villa's games must be spoken of, because they are very much in the race for the top four, and this game specifically was a big one. We were talking about the opportunity for them to capitalize on Tottenham's slip-ups against West Ham prior to them taking on Man City, and I criticized Unai Emery for the team that he put out against Manchester City, and I said that they cannot prioritize a game on the weekend against Brentford over a game against Manchester City. But what I mean by that is not that the Brentford game is less important. It's more that they're just as important. And if were to stand any chance against Manchester City, you had to go for what you believe was your best 11, or set up your team defensively at least to be able to cope with Man City. I thought that it was, and I think I've had further reflection upon what I wanted to say in regards to this since that game. I didn't really speak about it as much, but I feel like he was disappointed that he didn't use Arsenal's template for going to the Etihad and use it as a blueprint for himself, for his own team. In the NFL, I could tell you, as an Eagles fan, once the San Francisco 49ers did what they did to us at the link, that started a slide that basically imploded our season, because every team after that saw that the 49ers had exposed the Eagles and went into every single game almost with the same plan. And while Pep Guardiola, flipping back to Man City here, is really the greatest coach in the world and would have the ability to adjust, you still have to kind of use that as a blueprint, because it's something that not only 2 or 3 days earlier worked away at the Etihad, and Aston Villa should have had Ollie Watkins in the lineup. They most definitely should have had Yuri Tielemans in the lineup. Most definitely should have had Pau Torres in the lineup, and they failed to do so. The lineup they put out for the Brentford game. Oh, and by the way, Emilio Martinez also missed out. So your number one keeper was benched. That was the most bizarre thing. So again, Martinez comes back into the team. Pau Torres comes back into the team. Douglas Luiz plays, and Yuri Tielemans came back into the team. Leon Bailey came back into the team. Ollie Watkins came back into the team. If I'm missing anybody, please let me know in the comments section in terms of the changes that were made by Emery in this game. But this was a result that I believe they really kind of coughed up their chances, and I'm going to kind of quickly go through so we can move on and then talk about the title race, because I am trying to make these videos a lot shorter than I have been to begin. I do want to kind of keep my audience engaged throughout. So they go 1-0 up, and it was a beautiful whipped-in cross just from the edge of the area, and Ollie Watkins got to it. He put his head on it, and that was 30 minutes into the game, and Aston Villa took the lead. They not long after that doubled that when Morgan Rogers took a through ball from Yuri Tielemans, and he very smoothly placed it into the bottom corner, kind of awkwardly for the goalie, so it's kind of behind him. So at the near post, when it looked like he was going to go to the far post, he actually slotted in at the near post. And Aston Villa looked like they were going to take control of this game at home at Villa Park, and they would move on to continue to put pressure upon Tottenham, who would not play until the next day. But that wasn't to be the case. In fact, Brentford completely turned this match on its head. And it started from a bit of a chaotic little sequence there. Damsgaard puts the ball in, but Johan Wissa sort of kind of completely scoffs at it, and it bounces out, and then he's able to put the ball back in again, Damsgaard, and Zanka does get a foot onto it, and he puts it past Martinez, and it was game on at that point. It was 2-1. Only 2 minutes later, Mwembo does go ahead and put put Aston Villa ahead from an assist from Sergio Reguilon. And then 7 minutes after that, so it took 9 minutes for them to be 2-0 from 2-0 down to 3-2 up when Johan Wissa, this time he does capitalize and he does get his goal, and all of a sudden Brentford were 3-2 up. And they held that lead for about 12 minutes when Ollie Watkins again takes another header, another assist from McGinn, and he levels the score at 3-3. And they actually, Villa then at the point did put the pressure on to try to go ahead and win the game. There was a few opportunities. One right before the final whistle during the injury time when there's a bit of a bicycle kick from Lucadinho that barely went over the bar. But that was all she wrote. And that was a critical 2 points dropped here by Aston Villa in the race for top four. Tottenham at that point would have 2 games advantage over Villa, and Villa was only 3 points up. They were 2 points up ahead of Spurs. That one only put them 3 points up ahead of Spurs, and Spurs had the game again the next day against Nottingham Forest. They do all. By the way, that game in hand is against City, so that does need to be highlighted. But they basically gave Tottenham the control in the top 4 race, and as I said when they lost to Man City, that's why I didn't think it was a good idea, because that begins. Once you had a chance to, if they really put it in and they really got something out of the game against City, that would have given them a lot of belief. And I feel like a lot of the times you can't take any game lightly, because there is always a sort of domino effect where a bad result they got blown against City, does move you down the line, and that's followed now by a draw at home against Brentford, which I did flag, and I said that would be a tough game, and it would be a game where Brentford has been in the games against some of the big title chasers in recent weeks and months. And while they sit 15th, they're a team that could always, on their day, turn up with a performance and they could take points. They always make it hard for everyone that they play. And that is a big one. That's a big points dropped here from Aston Villa. So we move back to the title race, and as promised, we'll now move on to I'm just going to set the scene to the Arsenal against Brighton game. Obviously, the Manchester City result earlier this week puts massive amounts of pressure on Arsenal ahead of their trip to the Amex. Arsenal, now that they're at this point 2 points behind Man City following that result, anything but a win was going to be detrimental for their ability to move on and continue to challenge for the title race. Brighton is a traditionally very tough team to play, and not just me, but many pundits flagged this as a very tough away fixture for Arsenal to pick up all 3 points in. It was a potential banana skin. And as I said earlier, my predictions or my synopsis of so far of the title team stuck true to form. Again, as I said, throughout this weekend. And as I said about the other 2 teams, that they have conceded some chances. They kept their opponents opportunities. For Arsenal, they have controlled games, and they have not. And that may remain true. And I said that they would receive criticism from me if they were to be unprofessional in these games and concede goals. And they remain free of criticism for this week. So let's get running through the highlights or the the kind of the action, how the story of how this game unfolded. I think the game started out and Brighton put a little bit of pressure. You could felt the home pressure there. They had a few chances in this game, but they were very very half chances, like shots from outside the box. I shout out to Tariq Lamptey, who I think played really really well for Brighton. Um, but Arsenal themselves had many chances, and they really could have been two up probably within the first half an hour of this game. Um, there's one chance for Bukayo Saka, a chance that usually he does score from, where he does get the ball through to him and he does dribble past defenders. He sidesteps, cuts in to create an angle for himself that he liked, and the ball just slightly does drift over or drift wide. And there was another chance there as well where Gabriel Jesus cuts in from the opposite wing. He was basically nailed in front of goal. The keeper looked a bit beaten, but again, his shot kind of curls a bit beyond the post. There's also a chance even earlier than that, towards the beginning of the game, where Arsenal had a set piece, a corner. Gabriel heads it just wide, but the goal was gaping open, and he does. So Arsenal did pose a threat here, and they did deserve what they got when they did go 1-0 up. It was a penalty won by Jesus and conceded by Lamptey, who I did say had an overall good performance for Brighton today. I thought he was one of their better players. But he does go in, and he could see, and he makes a sloppy challenge. Just kind of, he had to make the challenge on Jesus, who's a very tricky player and hard to bring down, or hard to dispossess, I should say. He leaves a leg in. Jesus does sort of lean into that, and the referee points to the penalty spot. And it's actually interesting because I did mention that amongst the top amongst the top title challengers, there haven't been many penalty decisions given amongst those games throughout the entirety of this season. And this week did not follow that script, because there were some penalty shouts in basically all three of the title games. One that was not given, and that's actually been the consistency, so the one in the Crystal Palace, but this one that was given. And Bukayo Saka, interestingly enough, historically, this was the fixture last year with 8 games to go when Aston went away to the London Stadium and drew with West Ham, and Bukayo Saka had a chance at a penalty to give Arsenal the lead and the 3 points in that game, and he missed. This time, one year to the day, he gets the exact same opportunity away against Brighton, and he calmly slides it home and puts Arsenal in front. And you have to say they thoroughly deserve the lead after 33 minutes here. So they do go into the game up 1-0, and they do, again, very professional performance. They do control the game. Not necessarily in terms of really turning on the chances, especially from this point. There were a few, but nothing really of note to speak about. Brighton, I think, did have the fair share of half chances from this point. And they did kind of put that home pressure on Arsenal. But again, that defense, so solid, so calm, so cool. They remained in control throughout this game, Arsenal. And that control eventually does breed success when Arsenal make it 2-0. And it starts from Odegaard, who sees the run of Jorginho, who makes a little dart in towards the byline. It's sort of like a Kevin De Bruyne style dart. And you can see he lays it off for his former Chelsea teammate and current Arsenal teammate, longtime teammate Kai Havertz, who just pokes it home at the near post. And you felt Arsenal were very comfortable from there. And even further, that grip on the game that Arsenal had away from home, the professionalism did show. And Arsenal sort of have this ability, because they're so strong. They don't allow teams to progress about them, but they do concede possession to other teams in order to control the game, because they do lean on the elite ability to defend. And that's what they sort of did. And they every time they kind of allow Brighton to try to play around with the ball and then dispossess them. And um, that's what Arsenal do exactly. The ball gets dispossessed, and Kai Havertz puts the ball through for former Brighton player Leandro Trossard, and he goes one on one with the keeper, gets the keeper kind of come out from his position, and he dinks the ball over quite calm and coolly, and he's the one who puts an end to the day for Brighton, sends them to their only second home defeat of the season. And once again, Arsenal, flawless, professional. I don't know what else I can say about this team at this point. But for all those people who think this is the team that is most likely to bottle it, who do not give this team credit, they need to really watch the game that's unfolding. Sorry, bit tired. It's late on a Monday evening. You do need to give them credit for just how professional they are and how unbeatable they are. The rhythm, the momentum that is carrying on, the belief week in and week out. And this result firmly put the pressure on Liverpool going away to Old Trafford, because Arsenal went top of the league here. 1 point clear of Man City. Oh, my God. 1 point clear of Manchester City, and they went how many points clear? They went also 1 point clear of Liverpool, so 1 point clear of both. They were on 71. The other two were on 70 points following this game, and Mikel Arteta has got to be very happy with what he's seen from his side. And I've spoken about it enough on the previous episodes, but it's true to form. But again, it's another one ticked off for Arsenal, and I don't have much negative to say about them right now. As I said, they're the team that looks least likely to budge. They've been truly impressive, and at the moment, I think they, for me, are my favorites to go ahead and win the Premier League. As of right now, that might change, and you might see a different version of Arsenal on an off day that might catch them out, because they do have a lot of tough fixtures going on. That has to be the criticism of Arsenal. My bad. Honestly, I truly apologize for all the yawning. I'm just it's been a long day. I was at the office today, so late at night. But I had to get this video out for you guys. And especially had to talk about the action, because I was literally waiting all day to talk to you guys about what I saw over the weekend. And just a truly professional performance from the Gunners, and it does put them 1 point clear at the top of the table, with Liverpool's trip to Manchester United on the horizon. Brought us to the big game of the weekend. The one that we've been talking about. We were talking about it even on our previous show. We set up the previous midweek fixtures. We specifically talking about Man United games against Chelsea, and Liverpool's ability to keep teams or give teams lifelines in these games. The chaotic fashion in which they play that could be costly to their ability to move on and win this Premier League. And I think this game is an incredibly great example of why the content that I provide is it's worth a follow and worth a subscription, because I'm always going to keep it 100 with you, and I'm never going to fool you into a sense of security or into a false sense of I don't know, negativity whatsoever. That's not my style. My style is I'm just going to tell you the truth. You always get the truth from me There was no agendas, and as much criticism I may have risked receiving from Liverpool fans, I had to be honest. And let's run into the tape of this game. But this today was a huge game for Liverpool. Not Arsenal had taken the lead in the race. Man City had done their business as well, as I said earlier. So in a week where all three teams were on the road, maintaining the advantage in the title race for Liverpool today over their arch rivals was crucial. This was the game. Had Liverpool gone on to beat Man United, I would have been proven to be wrong. And you wouldn't have really seen many stumbling blocks beyond this point. And it would have been a tremendous psychological boost for the Reds ahead of the final seven. But if they were to have failed to win this game, it could be the stepping stone for what begins to be a set of results that could lead them to be falling away out of this title race. As I said, results like that isn't just about the details about missing out or 1 or 2 points later on in the league. It just psychologically, you've got to keep the momentum building, because the minute that you slip up, it could lead up to not as much confidence in the remaining fixtures and further slip off. There's always a domino effect. I just spoke about that with Aston Villa. And that is a rule that is not exclusive to any team. Right? It's a rule that applies to everybody. And regardless of who you are. And Liverpool, yeah, let's go on. Let's move on, because I don't want to spoil the result of this game. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you know exactly what happened, but my style is to sort of kind of tell you what's gone on in the game before I necessarily move on to my final analysis. So actually, Man United had the best chance at the start of the game. A ball's thrown in to Garnacho, and he does happen to finish it, and the crowd does go crazy. But it was ruled out for offside. I think there's no disputing the fact that Garnacho was offside, so we move on. Liverpool do take the lead here. And it came from a corner, which Robertson puts in, which was flicked on by Diaz and by Nunez, and Diaz was there at the back post to kind of smash it home, bicycle kick it in wherever you want, past Onana, and Liverpool went back on top of the Premier League and took back control of the title race at this point. This was their chance at going up 1-0 up at Old Trafford to seize control, to maybe do a bit of an Arsenal here and squeeze the life out of Old Trafford, squeeze the life out of this game, be in control of the game. I should highlight, by the way, that the lineup that Liverpool put in, Jarell Kwanzaa came back in for Ibrahima Konate, which I could only say would probably be put down to the fact that Konate is not that fit at the moment. But you could have questioned this, that you could have probably said that Kwanzaa probably should have started against Sheffield and let Konate come in for this game, because at the end of the day, the massive advantage that Liverpool had over Man United, I mean, besides being a much better team and having a much better season this year, being much better coached, Man United came in with one senior centre-back today that was healthy. Willie Kambawala got the start today, full start for Manchester United. And Jarell Kwanzaa starting alongside Van Dijk was sort of an equalizer for that, because you put in, a young centre-back for a young centre-back on either side. So it kind of, Klopp sort of, just went down to, I feel like, to Man United's levels a little bit in this game. Liverpool would maintain that 1-0 going all the way into the half. But coming out of the second half, that decision that Klopp made could have really been costly for his ability to go on and win the Premier League in his final season as Liverpool manager. because Joel Kwanzaa just nonchalantly just passes the ball, gives the ball away to Bruno Fernandes, who spots Kelleher off his line, and he basically just flips it over, like strongly chips it over him from almost near the center circle, and it was game on. Liverpool had conceded, and the momentum there was with the home side. You could feel they were into it. They got up. Liverpool, like Liverpool should know, having a similar sort of atmosphere at home. You got to keep Old Trafford quiet, because while they have been struggling this season and they have been shambolic and they've had their issues, when you bring life to Old Trafford, it's the same Old Trafford as it's always been, and you could tell the crowd all of a sudden just was really up for it. They could smell blood in the water. They could smell a chance to deny their biggest rivals a chance to the title race and have their say in where this Premier League goes. I mean, for Man United, I think they kind of their preference in terms of who's in the race would be Arsenal, because Liverpool are traditionally their biggest rivals. Liverpool have the ability to equal them on 20 titles this season, and Manchester City, of course, are their rivals across town who have a chance to do a quad. I mean, win four in a row, and I think their fans smelt this was a chance to help derail one of their rivals' is a title charge. And they took the lead. And it was a pass from Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Kobbie Mainoo took it down and from facing away from goal, twisted and just blasts a beautiful curling effort into the top corner. He's had some... This isn't the first time this season that he's done something like this. Remind me of the opponent. But he did this earlier on this season. But Kobbie Mainoo, who I did not speak enough about during my little rant about England in my last video, because he's also a player who should play a massive part for England at the Euros. He's up and coming. I've been so impressive. You can see this kid, and you said this. There's genuinely a great player in this boy, and he may have well just scored the most vital goal to date in the Premier League title race, because regardless of how this game finishes, unless Liverpool, and we'll discuss how this shows up, how this ends up, this was the goal that has now given Arsenal the advantage in the Premier League, and it's Kobbie Mainoo, who is going to be remembered because this was the first twist. I said once we got into those final 9 games following Arsenal and Man City's draw, all of them had played each other. They were all going to be playing on 3 separate occasions and watching each other. That was the real kickoff to the race in the title. The games that they played each other set it up, but this is the official run-in, and this is our first big twist in the run-in. And now Liverpool do not lose this game. There was a controversial penalty shout where basically Wan-Bissaka, controversially, Harvey Elliott goes down. Look, I think initially I looked at that and I go, ooh, penalty. Like I pointed to the spot. I go, that's a penalty. But having upon seeing replays, and actually when this game ended, I still thought it was a penalty. Having seen some replays since, I think Man United are incredibly unlucky. Obviously, it's very stupid, and at the end of the day, making challenges like that when necessarily I don't understand what's the necessary, because it's not like Harvey Elliott is through on goal here. Harvey Elliott has set up maybe a chance or a shot or something. Like he is running um, sort of parallel to the goal, but not really facing towards goal. It's a silly challenge to begin with to put yourself in this position. But having seen it, Harvey Elliott does make more. I should have been a dive because um, Wan-Bissaka does not actually make any contact with Harvey Elliott's standing leg, his front leg, which is the most important leg, I believe, in when it comes to judging if it's a penalty or not. Because the standing leg, obviously, is where you keep your balance. And generally, if someone does not make contact with your standing leg, you're not really likely to go down, right? So then Harvey Elliott begins. That's what is telling me that it's a dive. So Harvey Elliott begins to fall over, and he does fall over, and then his second foot, I should say at the end, does kind of strip or make slight contact with Bissaka's ankle. But at that point, like I understand there's contact in the thing, but like that. But I've seen so many times where I've seen something like that, and you'd hear Andy Towns like, "Oh, not enough for me," you know, or and again, it goes to VAR, and VAR decide that it's a penalty. Again, they're always going to back their boys. Once the decision has been given as penalty, there's about a 90% chance that the original rule on the field gets upheld, which is why the use of VAR in the Premier League is a joke. And I am going to continue to say that every time an incident like this does come up. And this is the third time on this video that I've discussed such a thing. And Mohamed Salah steps up, and Onana just dives early, and that was an easy finish from the penalty spot for Mo Salah. And Liverpool did go on, they put pressure, they did really try to put on the pressure and to win this game, to put them back at the top of the Premier League, to prove me wrong that the way of playing is sustainable. But once again, this is the time it did catch up to Liverpool. And I feel very validated and vindicated in me sticking by my analysis on this on my previous two videos of Liverpool, discussing Liverpool. And Diaz does have a chance at the end, as does Harvey Elliott, but to no avail. It does finish at Old Trafford 2-2, and Arsenal go top of the league. And this is going to create a very interesting juncture in this title race. Big question out to the audience. Who do you think is the favorites in this year's title race? After this game, regardless of how the bookies say, regardless of how you look at the fixtures, Arsenal, as long as the title is in their hands, must be considered the favorites now for the Premier League, because of the fact that I feel that they have been so controlled more than the other two, that they're the least likely to spurn this chance. The only reason why their chance might be spurned, and why many people do include Man City now as the favourites after this. Actually, Liverpool after this result have moved to third favourites. So it's probably about where I've always had them and where they are sitting now. Although they're second on the table. So it's actually funny. The table is completely not indicative to the title odds. Title odds have had City 1, Arsenal 2, Liverpool 3, but it's really Arsenal 1, Liverpool 2, Man City 3. So like none of the spots match the title odds in the table, but the league table is the league table. And it's not the final league table. Basically it's based off the fact that they expect Arsenal with a tougher round of fixtures to drop some points as the season go on, and for Man City to be flawless. Let's go and see, because now that the pressure is on Arsenal, and I said that the torch has now been passed. I said I will continue to put the pressure on whoever is leading and narrate my story and my narratives to whoever is leading and see how they cope with that pressure. Now it's on Arsenal. Liverpool did hold it for a little bit, but I could feel them buckling under that pressure, and you could see signs, and eventually it's been told. Now let's see what Arsenal do. Are they as stable? Are they as controlled? Are they as clinical? are they as defensively solid as they have been leading up to this? The previous chance that they was given and put in their hands, they did go into an international break and they did have to play Man City at the Etihad. This time around, that fixture is now in the rearview mirror. This vindicates Arteta for his tactics and his decisions and how he navigated that Manchester City game. And now it's going to be really interesting now. 7 games to go now in the Premier League title race, and Arsenal are now the torchbearers. They're the ones with their hands on this title. It is, if they win all their games, they will be champions. And I said Liverpool had to win 8 out of 8 to be champions, and they have now failed to do so. So Arsenal are going to have to win 7 out of 7, most likely, at this point. That can be changed given the fact that Man City have looked vulnerable, and if they get caught up, like, there is a tricky tie coming up. I mean, actually, not really. It's going to be, the tricky tie is going to be the Brighton game in 2 weeks after the Champions League result. And I think I'm really interested to see where the Champions League result goes between them, because they could be on a down after losing to Real Madrid, and to see how they respond against Brighton. They, luckily enough, they have Luton in between to rest their starters between the 2 Real Madrid games. But yeah, the onus now is on Arsenal to see what they can do in this title race. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from here on out. And now moving on from the title race, and we're going to talk quickly about Chelsea. Whilst they are completely irrelevant from almost any of the important races, they're very mid-table at the moment. They're not going down, they're not going to the Europe, and they're not going to win the league. So this is very, sorry to say this, Chelsea fans, but at this particular moment in time, you're not a priority on this show as long as there's no drama, really. But there was drama in this game, and we'll quickly go through this before moving on to talking about Tottenham Hotspur and the Champions League positions. Chelsea went away to Sheffield United. So we spoke about Sheffield United again, so they actually made it to 2 consecutive shows. They played Liverpool earlier in the week. This time they do play hosts to Chelsea, and only within 11 minutes actually do Chelsea take the lead. It was a ball across from a corner from Conor Gallagher, which Thiago Silva does flick into the far post using kind of like, it was a kind of a neat flick backwards, using his forward leg that goes all the way and sneaks into the far post. And Chelsea did go 1-0 up. I think Chelsea did very much have the majority of the play here. Let's look at the stats here. They had 67%, almost 68% possession. But I don't believe they really created enough shots. Like, I feel with the 1/3 of possession that Sheffield United did have in this game, they were a lot more clinical and more useful with it. They had half the touches, yet double the shots on target, and nearly double the amount of shots. And that would play its part. When Gustavo Hamer plays a beautiful ball, through ball in, and Jayden Bogle just smashes it into the back of the net to level it 1-1. This is in the 32nd minute, so this is still in the first half. And Chelsea, after their impressively shambolic victory over the Battle of the Mids against Man United, once again go into halftime level after giving up an early lead. And they did wrestle it back through Noni Madueke, and Cole Palmer plays it to Noni Madueke, who lose a bunch of lovely trickery and footwork down the right wing before smashing a really lovely shot in. By the way, the Jayden Bogle shot I should mention earlier was also it wasn't really a smash, but more of because I just want to describe this correctly. he sort of like kind of shoots it across the face of the goal, and it sneaks into the back post. It's very, yeah. But I wasn't really when I said smash. It wasn't like he was right in front of goal and he made the back of the net bulge. It was like a era. But this time, that's why I mentioned why I had to correct that, because this Noni Madueke goal was smashed into the back of the net traditionally, just to give you a better kind of painting of what actually is going on, so you can vision it in your head. Um, but yeah, Chelsea do go up 2-1 again, and they do again have a few fair share. So shots on target, I just mentioned two, the Silva goal and the Madueke goal. They did have a third shot on target, which is Cole Palmer from outside the box sends a laser, which has to be saved, and the goalkeeper palms it over the top of the net to keep Sheffield United in it. And boy, did they stay in it to the end. The home team had, again, the fair share of the chances in this game. And the pressure told because 3 minutes into injury time, Cameron Archer sets up Ollie McBurney, who scored to give steal Sheffield United a share of the points against Chelsea. And that's another 2 points dropped this year in the story of just a crazy roller coaster season for Chelsea Football Club. They do maintain their position in the top half of the league, though. They are still ninth following that point. The point does take them ahead of Brighton, who did lose against Arsenal, so the point does still put them in ninth place into the top half of the table. Do Chelsea go? And that's basically all I have to say about this game. I mean, the problems for Chelsea continue. That's twice now that they haven't been able to maintain advantages against teams in the bottom half part of the table. So, yeah, look, what else can I say? I don't want to give too much analysis to this game just because I'm trying to shorten the video, but it does finish 2-2 with Sheffield United gaining the points at the last minute. Moving on to the final match of the weekend, and it involves the race for the Champions League. So just give you an update. Obviously, early we spoke about Aston Villa's result where they dropped 2 points at home. Really put the onus now on Tottenham for them to officially take over that fourth spot due to the advantage, the goal advantage, the goal difference. So this is a chance here for Spurs. They were playing at home against Nottingham Forest. It's the first trip for Nuno Espirito Santo back to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where he used to be the manager of Tottenham, only for a short period of time. But it also obviously would cause a nice bit of a extra storyline in there for this final game of the Premier League, which was actually very interesting to watch, given that the Liverpool and Man United game had been done over with, so you could kind of kick back, watch Chelsea, and then watch Tottenham, and kind of just, But there was a pressure on Tottenham here. As I said, they had 2 games to capitalize on, this one and the fixture they will be played later on in the season against Manchester City, to be rescheduled, not announced quite yet. But look, Nottingham Forest had their fair share. I think Nottingham Forest made a great account for themselves in this game. And they actually, a really interesting moment here, Murillo, who will be a theme of this, does see Vicario way off his line. And if this goes in, this would become a goal of the century, because he's way almost in the defensive third of the pitch, and he sees Vicario way off his line, and he tries to send the blast in like a long range volley, and he does slightly miss the target, but it does create, like, especially for Tottenham at home, a bit of nerves. I mean, I'm familiar with the fan base, and I just want to clear something up. I am not a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Uh, I know the channel is called Hot Sport, but it's not anything to do with a hot spur. Okay, um, I've already had a few people say this to me. Um, no, that is not the name of the channel. That is not the name. That's not. That's the team I support. So, just want to clear it up. Nothing to do with Hotspur. Um, anyway, um, Tottenham do take the lead, and it's ironically Murillo again. Um, a ball from Son to Werner. He puts in the cross, and Murillo just kind of turns it home, bumbles it home towards the back of his own net. The game gave Tottenham the advantage. But from then on, I thought Nottingham Forest had a very, um, like, probably their best spells of the game came from right after this. And Chris Wood, from a pass from former Man United man Anthony Elanga, does smash home an easy, like a goal opens wide open, easy finish. He levels the score at one apiece. And again, another chaotic back and forth affair in North London, and not the red side of North London, because obviously there isn't any chaotic affairs there recently. Um, and look, Spurs get incredibly lucky here, because Chris Wood could have doubled his goal tally when he has a very similar chance, and this time the chance smashes off the post. And Tottenham really get out of jail here, going into halftime, almost kind of clinging on to that 1-1 scoreline were Tottenham at this point. And they needed to sort of collect themselves in the second half, and credit to them. And they do take the lead not long after the resumption of the second period of play, and Son sets up Mickey van de Ven. A nice, clean finish from him. Similarly to that Chris Wood, but a little bit further out, and he restores Tottenham's advantage. And not long after that, that momentum, that I think the pressure, all of Nottingham Forest's pressure, kind of it relieves from the stadium, and as I said, momentum is a big thing. 6 minutes later, Bentancur finds Porro, who sees another, like, a lot of really open nets and bad defending in this game, I think, from both sides for the goals. Like, there were some pretty simple goals all scored today. Pedro Porro blasts Tottenham to a 2-goal advantage, basically securing the points. Son has a shot later on in the game that also basically hits the post, so which kind of levels it out from the one that Chris Wood missed earlier. But Tottenham go up into fourth place, so into the Champions League positions. They've taken advantage of the slip-ups of Aston Villa, and they are now firmly in control of the race for fourth place. Look, I think that's the ceiling for Villa or Spurs, because they're not even in the title race. But I just don't think that they'll catch any of the three to be in third. I don't think one of the title challengers will back out into fourth. I just don't see that happening. So they do put a firm grip on that last Champions League place right now, in terms of it's in their hands. They also have one game extra to play, so it is pretty a firm grip right now for Tottenham. They do have, they do have a top difficult run in towards the end of the season. They do play all three of the title challengers, which means they do also will have a fair say in where the Premier League title goes. But it also is a tougher run in for Villa. So Villa it's not done. And just to be pointed out, though, as we speak about the Champions League, which will be our next segment, if Arsenal and Man City do advance to the Champions League semi-finals, I do believe that does open up the fifth spot, so that both Villa and Spurs could potentially both make it into the Champions League, which would put Man United at the moment into the Europa League spot, and West Ham back into the Conference League, where they are currently the defending champions for now. So that is a roundup of the fixtures. and we'll just give you kind of a recap. I'm just going to go up to the kind of up during the kind of the order of the teams up to the top 10. Arsenal first at 71 points on a +9 goal difference over Liverpool, who are second, also on 71 points. Man City are in third place on 70 points, and 10 points behind them, now in fourth place on 60 points, is Tottenham Hotspur. And moving down to fifth, Aston Villa, also level on 60 points, but with one game extra played over Tottenham. Man United, with the valuable point against Liverpool, are in sixth, remain in sixth place. It actually moved them one ahead of West Ham, who are 48 points. And in seventh. And in eighth, Newcastle United are 1 point behind West Ham on 47 points. And Chelsea 3 points behind only of Newcastle at 44. They actually, how many games in hand here? They do have a shout for that, maybe that Conference League place, which is probably the best that Chelsea can find themselves in. So it's not completely irrelevant, as if they can stack up wins together, they may be able to sneak them their way into those positions. And in 10th, Brighton 1 point behind Chelsea on 43 points. And just talking about just the relegation zone, just quickly, Forest, with that loss, actually does put them, and there actually has also been, by the way, a 2 points deduction to Everton again, so another 2 points deducted, which throws them firmly into the relegation race again. Nottingham Forest and Luton level for 17th and 18th place. A four goal advantage on the goal difference for Forest keeps them up at the moment. Luton are in 18th in the relegation zone, also on 25. Burnley 6 points behind that, only on 19. And lowly Sheffield United 20th, rock bottom at 16th. So that will wrap up my review of the Premier League games of the weekend. I hope you enjoyed that. So as you notice, obviously I'm wearing something different. We originally planned to do a preview of the Champions League and actually recorded a preview of the Champions League, but I was unable to get this video out until after the Champions League games. So instead of previewing the games, I'm just gonna sort of do what we've done with the Premier League weekend games and do a quick wrap up here of the Champions League action. So we'll begin. We'll just get straight right into it, and we'll talk about Man City against Real Madrid, and this was obviously the matchup of probably the two best teams in the world. So highly anticipated. Unfortunately, it was on at the same time as the Arsenal and Bayern Munich game, so you kind of had to flick between the two, and those were two high-quality ties that didn't really get to have their own stage individually. But I'll run through the highlights, and then I'll tell you my verdict on the game and how we believe the second half will pan out. So Man City start really fast in this game. And they take the lead from a free kick by Bernardo Silva. What was the time of this one? It was 2 minutes in, and it kind of takes an awkward deflection off the goalkeeper, and it bounces in, and just like that, Man City take the lead. Not only do they take the lead, but they still kind of really boss the proceedings from here on out. There's a notable chance from Erling Haaland that was saved by Lunin, and Man City were really in control. But just like that, Real Madrid turned it around. And I did highlight the recent defensive frailties from Man City recently. I did mention in my preview of this game, which will never see the light of day, that I felt that Real Madrid would take advantage of that. I did predict it originally a Real Madrid win. But anyway, Real Madrid turned this game around very quickly. And There's a shot by Camavinga that takes a weird deflection off Ruben Diaz. I'm actually looking at it now. It says Ruben Diaz own goal. I was up until this moment convinced it was a Camavinga goal, but that levels the scoreline. And only 2 minutes later, Rodrigo runs through on goal, and he kind of puts in a soft touch that goes through Ortega's legs and just slowly rolls into the net. And all of a sudden, all the momentum of the tie, of the night, was all on the side of Real Madrid. And they continue to go back and forth, these two. They continue to pile on the chances, and they go into the half at 1 goal apiece. And from the second half, I think Pep really had City kind of really riled up and motivated for that second half. And there were many, many chances that Man City had. There was one from Bernardo Silva. There was one from Phil Foden. And Man City looked like there was it was only a matter of time before this game would be leveled. And yet again, Phil Foden continues his magnificent form on the season, hitting a wonder strike from outside the box to level it at 2 each. And only 5 minutes later, that City pressure continues. And similarly to how Real Madrid had a really great spell in the game where they turned the game around from 1-0 down to 2-1 up, Man City go from 2-1 down to 3-2 up when a layout from Jack Grealish and Josko Guardiola absolutely bolts like a massive shot from outside the box, and it gives Man City a 3-2 lead. But that lead was short-lived. 8 minutes later from that, Federico Valverde from a cross looped over the top by Vinicius Jr. just lasers a shot out of nowhere. Like I was watching it on TV. You can't really see Valverde come into the picture, and then all of a sudden he smashes it into the opposite corner, and he just bulges the back of the net. And the game finishes as Real Madrid 3, Manchester City 3. Just quickly, how I believe this leaves the tie, and then I'll give you a bit of a quick analysis on this. I think Man City have the advantage now without the away goal rule. Even with the away goal rule, Man City have had the advantage. But it's almost as if a 3-3 is almost like a 0-0 because the game is going to be a one-off game now in Manchester, and that's going to be a massive advantage for Man City. The fact that they've gone through the Bernabeu, which is the toughest stadium to win in all of professional football, and they've come out of that alive and with it on level pegging. It's one game. It's gonna be in Manchester with the advantage now for Man City. This game sort of in terms of the amount of goals, kind of really showed up the way I thought it would be. And we're going to speak about the other game on the same night involving another Premier League team. And they kind of both had similar kind of vibes. But this one was sort of like a shootout between two really, really top level offenses. And the quality of the goals were great. The back and forth was great, and it was sort of what the neutral would want to see from a game like this. And yeah, and look, I knew that Manchester City's leaking of goals recently would be causing them a bit of a problem, and 3 away to Real Madrid is not surprising to me. What's surprising to me was the fact that Real Madrid themselves looked so shaky at home, and were caught off guard so quickly, considering that they had lost this team in the semifinals of a year ago. I thought that Real Madrid would be ready for this, but that seemed to be not the case. So it's going to be a really intriguing second leg. I think I'm going to be looking forward to it. But yeah, it finishes 3-3 at the Bernabeu, and we move on. Now moving on to the second game in the Champions League, and that was Arsenal hosting Bayern Munich. Now, I'm still left shell shocked after the way this game ended. Not quite because of the result, but just because of the controversy surrounding it. There are many different moments. It was a there's a lot to pick apart about this game. Um, it was entertaining from a different point of view, while Real Madrid and Man City was more of a straight shootout between two quality sides. This was more of a. I'm not going to use the word chaotic because these are also two quality sides, but this was a night of many noteworthy events is the way I would put it. Um, so the context behind this game is that Arsenal obviously is coming in here on great form, and I've been praising Arsenal of recent times about their defensive solidity. While Bayern Munich have come into this off the back of their probably worst league campaign in almost a decade. Um, been knocked out of the cup. They're gonna. They're basically just only a couple days away from having Bayer Leverkusen be crowned the champions of Germany. So the feeling behind this game was that this was a real opportunity for Arsenal to really stamp the authority at home. There was no fans allowed from the Bayern Munich supporters. So Arsenal had so much of a home advantage for this first leg, and they kind of felt like they had to take advantage of that moving in. But I'll run the tape on this one, and there's so much to pick apart and go through. So I'm going to try to do this as efficiently as I can and go from one thing to the other without missing anything. So Arsenal start really well, and 12 minutes in, there's a beautiful little of interchange between Ben White, who slips the ball into Bukayo Saka, who just unleashes an incredibly pretty shot that bends around the keeper along the grass into the far post. At a just beautiful piece of skill by Bukayo Saka. And you kind of felt like this was a real moment in his career. The one people have been kind of looking for in terms of really delivering on the biggest stage in the Champions League quarterfinal. Bukayo Saka shows off just an incredible piece of brilliance to put Arsenal 1-0 up. Arsenal, not long afterwards, but you can feel Bayern panicking at this point of the game, and could have almost doubled their lead when basically Bayern lose the ball in a very dangerous area. Kai Havertz picks it up quickly, just pokes it forward to Ben White, who's onside, who just kind of just shoots it right at Manuel Neuer. He should have composed himself. He could have easily scored, but the game did stay at one apiece at this time. But Arsenal's lead did not last long. And the Arsenal that I've been discussing even earlier in this video, it was of course a few days ago when I originally recorded it, a defensively solid team now must come under scrutiny because in this Champions League game they've seemed to be fallen to a different, I don't know, just kind of gotten a bit, played the occasion more than the game and got lost under the Champions League light. And none more than the goalie David Raya, who it's a very bizarre kind of sequence that leads to this goal. And Gabriel has the ball in the defensive area half for Arsenal, and he plays it with Saliba, and all of a sudden you kind of see David Raya like only kind of right behind Gabriel in the picture, like only a few yards behind him, way off of his line. And Harry Kane, being the seasoned veteran he is, notices the positioning of the goalie, and he puts Gabriel under pressure. And I think Gabriel then plays the ball forward and tries to play it towards Kivior, who was not expecting the pass. And Leroy Sané intercepts the ball, plays it to Goretzka, who then throws in a nice through ball to Gnabry, and Ben White kind of misses the tackle at the very end, and the ball goes past Rye, who's scrambling back to his goal, and all of a sudden it's 1-1, and a Bayern Munich side that seemed a bit nervous, seemed a bit lacking confidence, seemed to be um, fearful of a long night to come. Suddenly had a lifeline in this game, and suddenly had the momentum. Um, then they would double their lead. We'll come back to some of these incidents more in my review, but they do double their lead, and Leroy Sané comes charging in, loads of pace, and really this is more of a critical um, part of the game that I was not expecting to see from Arsenal, that I've actually been praising them for, and this is completely out of character for them. But um, he basically beats Kivior for pace. Kivior actually tries to make a tackle. He misses the tackle. Then Gabriel misses the tackle. And then finally Saliba brings him down, and it's in the box, and Sane goes down for a penalty. Um, now now Saliba actually just really uncharacteristic of him, clips him from behind, and look, I think we'll go through all the decisions, but I personally think quite rightly this penalty should have been awarded to Leroy Sané, and it was. And Harry Kane, of course, the ex-Tottenham man, steps up from the spot back at the Emirates, where he actually is the player who has scored the highest scoring non-Arsenal player at the Emirates in the history of the stadium, which is a very interesting fact. And David Raya just sort of kind of goes a bit early on his dive for the ball, and it's an easy finish for Harry Kane. And all of a sudden, just chaotically, Arsenal are 2-1 down at home. And I think from then on, Arsenal kind of really struggled, especially Jakub Kivior, dealing with the pace of Bayern. Gnabry and Sane and Kane were just a lot to handle, and Arsenal really struggled to hold in on, but they do manage to get to halftime, 2-1, 2-1 down. And I'm gonna add in a piece here to the game that I didn't really see, but I was informed of afterwards, and it became known. There's an incident here where in the 67th minute, Arsenal have a goal kick. David Raya, the whistle. Sorry, I should start. The referee whistles, and David Raya kicks the ball towards Gabriel, who takes the ball and plants it down on the field to take the goal kick, and then kicks it back to David Raya to start the goal kick. And this is never noticed. The referee doesn't see this. Maybe he does, but I don't notice it. It's something quite odd that Arsenal do quite often. The interchange play here, but it just seemed to be something that Thomas Tuchel was very upset with, and many people believe that Bayern should have had a penalty here, and if they would have had the penalty here, it would have actually killed off the tie. They would have gone 3-1 up, and it would have been very hard to imagine Arsenal coming back not only on this night but in the tie in of its entirety. But I think the referee decides that it's a very silly call to make in such an occasion. It could have really ruined the complexity of the game. It would set a standard for future calls of such magnitude that I just think that he was not willing to give. But from that moment, I mean, really, that moment wasn't really a moment in the game. It was only something discussed about after the game. But Arsenal do make a few changes. They do bring on Gabriel Jesus. They do bring on Leandro Trossard to kind of just change it up, because Bayern were very, very strong defensively throughout periods of this game, and Arsenal struggled to break them down. And Arteta threw out the roll of the dice. Kai Havertz moves back into midfield, and it results in a beautiful kind of move here by Jesus, who really impacts this game, shows a bit of quality, shrugs off the defender, slides it for Leandro Trossard, who just bullets the ball into the bottom corner, and it was game back on. It was 2-2. Um, and that was with about 14 or so minutes to go of the 90. Um, Bayern Munich almost actually go up 3-2 up again, where Kingsley Coman hits the post with his back heel into the post, which slams into the post. Arsenal get lucky, and the game has a sort of a chaotic finish to it from that Leandro Trossard goal. Both sides back and forth, very very open, and we head into injury time now, where a ball slid in, and this is the big moment of the game that everyone is talking about. And the ball slid into Bukayo Saka, who goes one-on-one with Manuel Neuer, who kind of charges in, sticks a leg out. Saka goes over, and the entire stadium is screaming for a penalty. The referee doesn't give it. He plays on. About 30 seconds later, it seems as if he's been told to check the VAR, and we think you're going in for a VAR review, and next thing you know, the final whistle's been blown, and you can tell Saka is absolutely upset that he's not been given. Mikel Arteta waves his arms in the air, and they go down the tunnel with all to play for in Munich, 2-2. I just kind of want to go over some of these controversial decisions, and there was also one involving Harry Kane. I just wanted to go, as I usually do, go through the way the scoring happened before actually talking about the individual refereeing decisions. As mentioned earlier, I do believe that the decision to give Leroy Sané a penalty was the correct decision. I also believe that the decision to not award Bayern a penalty was also the correct decision. I just think it would have been silly and just tremendously. I think Arsenal fans would have been just in shock if all of a sudden, out of nowhere, referee goes, "Not penalty." Just because it doesn't really impact the game, doesn't really give Arsenal any sort of an advantage. I reckon that was a mature and correct decision to be made in that part of the game. There was a red card appeal on Harry Kane where I think he gets very lucky here. I look, Harry Kane is a very seasoned professional. He's a master of the dark arts, as many of us would know from his time in the Premier League. And this position, I think he tries to win the ball back from Gabriel, and you can see he takes a quick look. Originally, when I watched this in the game, I thought, okay, yeah, it's a yellow, and nothing much of it. And really, the commentator just goes, oh yeah, it's yellow for Harry Kane for the elbow here on Saliba. When you really watch it back, he looks to see where Gabriel is, so it's not like he's unaware, like he's swinging his arms around by accident. I think he kind of moves his elbow back into Gabriel to gain an advantage so that he can win the ball, and he does elbow Gabriel directly in the face. And I actually do, upon review, think that it should have been a red card. And look, it's somewhere teeters on the line between I would call it an orange, right? Where you could see it given as a yellow, which it was, and you could also see it given as a red. Now, my initial reaction would have been probably what the referee would have given in real time, which was yellow. But it's crazy with some of these decisions. You watch them back after the game has way been finished, and you kind of have a change of opinion as you've seen all these. But that would have been massive because Harry Kane wouldn't have been available. It would have been Bayern sent down to 10 men, which means that Arsenal would have had a real advantage here to try to win this game. So it really would have swung the momentum of the tie. Again, potentially with that being said, the referee, just like with the other situation, probably made the right decision by not trying to make a decision that was too huge and that could completely change the tie. I think the referee wanted to keep it very well balanced, and I think that's kind of the thought process behind all of the second half refereeing decisions. And finally, the Saka one. Look, I've watched this back about 200 times in the last 48 hours, and my final conclusion was that was a penalty and should have been a penalty, but was not given as a penalty because the referee felt that he owed one to Bayern for not giving the other penalty for the handball. So he just kind of wanted to get out of town, keep the tie nicely poised at 2-2, where he hasn't awarded any serious advantage one way or the other. Um, but I've heard a lot of things about this situation. He went into it. It was a dive. Nor Dory didn't move, and all of that is not true. Um, I've watched this from many different angles. Shout out to Terry. He got a mentioned earlier. Terry from the Football Terrace. He actually go back to his videos. He really nicely breaks it down, and I'll kind of try to do it for you a little bit. So Saka comes charging in at pace. The ball the the through ball comes. He charges in at pace, and I think actually initially I've watched this before and nobody's actually said this yet. I think that Bukayo Saka could have completely avoided the situation as Neuer shoots comes running out of his goal. I reckon he probably could have lifted the ball over Neuer. I think he could have chipped him, or at least just kind of raised the ball over and just shot from outside the box. And probably the ball would have found its way to the net. I think from there, a lot of people said Bukayo Saka could have ran to the keeper. From what I've seen, I don't think he's been given the option, and this is the reason why. So Neuer comes out and he comes spread and he's trying to make himself big, and the he kind of swings a leg, and Bukayo Saka sees the leg being swung, and I think he tries to hurdle it. No, actually, no, I don't think he tries to hurdle it. He does try to hurdle it, and on his way, kind of trying to hurdle it. That swing of the leg by Neuer does catch Saka not just at the shin height or the ankles, but actually closer to the knees, and Saka just lands kind of on his 2 feet and goes over, but just because of the situation where where Neuer's leg comes in on him, there's no way for Saka to avoid it. He is sort of stuck there. He's not given any other options, and he's kind of trapped in that position. That is why I believe it should have been a penalty. Neuer knows what he's doing. He's denied the ability for the goal scorer, which obviously is his job as the goalie, but he's given Saka's no option, and he's made contact. And I've seen situations like this given almost consistently, and I actually think it's a stonewall penalty. I've heard a lot of people, and respect to them, tell me that it's not a penalty, but I just can't see it. And there's been a lot of misconceptions. Oh, Saka goes into it. I've watched this back about a million times now, and I don't see it. He's not diving. In fact, you can tell that by the fact he lands on both of his feet, that he's gone up in the air to hurdle, and yeah. So I think, look, overall, I don't think Arsenal deserve to win this game 3-2, and they must come under criticism from me before I finish the wrap up of this game. I've praised them for the defensive solidity. That was not there in this game. And as I said, I have to back that up. Look, let's see how things look against Aston Villa, if they can go back to their solid defensive best. But I think they got lost under the Champions League lights, and they just made some very uncharacteristic defensive mistakes. So this is the first time in a very long time that I've seen Arsenal be this way, leaking goals, as the way that their title rivals have in recent weeks. So it's something to look at. And again, I said if they were to do something like this, it would come under scrutiny from me, and there you have it. But what I will say is that I want to see what happens in the coming game, especially against Villa and the second leg against Bayern, to see if it becomes more of a pattern or if it's just a one-off. So you have to give them the benefit of the doubt in that scenario. Anyway, guys, it's been a long week of recording, and I want to get this thing out to you. So I'm going to wrap up here. Um, Guys, please, I'm just starting to get this thing started. I've noticed people have been viewing videos without hitting the like button or without subscribing. If you're here ready to watch my videos, I would very much appreciate you subscribing. That way, you can get and here turning on the notification bell so that you can see the content. Because look, I'm working very hard at this recently, and look, I'm just starting, and any help I can for this platform at the moment would be absolutely brilliant. I will be back. I won't quite. I'm not going to quite preview the games for the Premier League. I am just going to review them in my next video, but I will be back with a review of the weekend's action in the Premier League, um, and so yeah, I'll be seeing you there guys on the next video. So until then, have a good night, have a good rest of the week, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.